Okay, you were still a teenager when you initially went to work at Abbey Road. Just how initially did you land that job?
I had been working for an allied department to Abbey Road. It was called Tape Records, and I mean, you're making me feel really old now. This was a department that used to make commercial tapes for sale, but this was before cassettes came along. There were reel-to-reel tapes on quarter-inch tape, and even even the Beatles were releasing in that format until about probably until about 1970, 71.
So
And,
at that time,
just being associated with that department was a kind of a way into Abbey Road because they were connected.
So at that time, was your prime interest looking at a career in production, or did you still have designs on a career as a musician?
Oh no, I definitely. Well, when I got the job at Abbey Road, I was definitely moving in much more musician type circles. But when I got the job at Abbey Road, it sort of cemented the notion that I wanted to be an engineer and producer, rather than a musician. And I pretty much let my guitar gather dust for 25 years after that.
Do you recall the very first production you worked on?
The very first production was actually it was a sort of a self-made band of people that through friends. I co-wrote a song with somebody, and then we got some money together through a publishing company and went and made a record. It was very very 70s and rather I don't know, rather poppy. But it never actually got released. So, but my first sort of successful productions were with EMI in the mid 70s. I did stuff with Pilot and with Cockney Rebel, both of whom had big hits. So that's really when it started.
Of course, it's well documented you were involved in working on the Abbey Road album with the Beatles. Tell us about your role on that record and your observations of the working dynamics within the group in the studio.
It was very early days for me. I mean, I hadn't been working at Abbey Road for more than about a year. It was a fascinating thing to see as an observer. I mean, just to watch the Beatles at work was an incredible privilege. And I'm a self-confessed or I was a self-confessed Beatle fan, from the very earliest days. So it was a great experience. I don't really profess to have made any creative contribution to Abbey Road because I was just there to do what I was told and. Press record hopefully at the right time and press play at the right time and fetch and carry and make tea and coffee and stuff. It was a pretty junior position, but one thing I did notice, which was different from my previous experience with them, which was on the Let It Be album, which was a few months earlier. Contrary to popular belief, they were released in reverse order. But Abbey Road was different to Let It Be in that they largely dominated sessions individually. So Paul would come in and work on his songs, John would come and work on his songs, George would come in and work on his songs. So it was largely an album compiled from, the majority of the work being done by individuals, not the band as a whole. So that's one thing I noticed. And of course, the history shows that they didn't really want us to be in each other's company that much, and the announcement of the breakup came shortly after.
Moving on to Dark Side of the Moon for Pink Floyd, which obviously you also worked on. It's such an iconic album now. When you were part of the creative process of a work like that, are you able to foresee the extent of the significance of the record? Did you feel like you were working on something that was going to be pretty special there?
I think we all felt that it was the best Pink Floyd record to date. I don't think we could have ever really predicted that it would spend 700 weeks on the charts or whatever it was. No, I think we all felt very proud of it. But I mean, I think Roger Waters would dispute this. He apparently knew that it was going to be absolutely mega from day one, but I certainly had no idea that I would be still talking about it, more than 35 years later.
Now, I read there's been a little bit of conjecture between you and the guys from Pink Floyd over the years as to the significance of your contribution to that record. Is that right?
I've heard various reports of some positive and some negative, yeah. But I'm secure in the knowledge that I made a contribution, and I'm good with it. I didn't get rich on it, but I'm in those grooves. I'm certain of it.
Do you think a record like Dark Side of the Moon could have been a better record if the recording technologies that are available now were available back then?
No, I don't think so. I think I think we made good use of the available technology, but it could have been recorded quicker, I think, given modern technology. But I don't think it would necessarily have been better, and I don't think it would necessarily have sounded better either.
Yeah. The Abbey Road studios don't see anywhere near the action that it saw in its heyday. Does it sadden you a bit that large recording complexes like that are becoming a little redundant?
Well, Abbey Road has the advantage of being so much of a trademark within itself that I think it does remain reasonably busy. But lesser studios in London and New York and Los Angeles, Sydney, no doubt, Melbourne, even, I don't know. They're all closing down, every day, and it's terribly sad. But it's an indication of the way records are made these days. I mean, they're made on laptop computers in people's houses, and the sort of golden age of recording technique has kind of been brushed under the carpet, rather sadly.
Talking about your production work, if there was one golden rule of production that you would always try to adhere to, what would it be? Have more than one performer interacting with another at any given time. I think it's very important, particularly on the early stages of a recording, to have a band playing, not start with a click track and then add a pad and then add a bass and then add a drum loop or whatever it is. I just think so many modern records lose the atmosphere that they could have created by simply having a band of musicians playing real instruments, and bouncing off each other, both musically and conversationally. I mean, just discussing between them how they're going to achieve what they want to achieve, and that's terribly lacking in most of today's music. Just moving on to the Alan Parsons project, how did you first come in contact with Eric Wolfson? Was that while you were working at Abbey Road?
Yes, it was. He was producing a sort of child prodigy actor, sort of a 8-year-old or 9-year-old singer, a male singer, who was the son of one of the EMI executives, and I just admired his his knowledge of the business. He seemed to know all about publishing and how labels work, and he was actually managing the famous Carl Douglas, who did the Kung Fu fighting record, if you remember that.
Yeah.
So he offered to be my manager, and I jumped at that chance because I definitely needed help and guidance and money in the bank. I'd had a couple of hits as a producer and really nothing to show for it. So Eric made a huge difference in that respect. And then it was literally only a matter of weeks before he came along and said, by the way, I've got some songs and I think we should go and make a concept album based on Edgar Allan Poe stories. And so I said, well, all right. So we started writing together and assembling that notion, and then we took it to MEDEM, the big convention in the south of France, which happens every year. And we did a record deal there and then, just based on the idea. No demos, no nothing, just the idea. And that was remarkable that we managed to achieve that.
So generally, how did the songwriting process work with the two of you, or was that something that varied from song to song?
It did vary. We agreed at the outset that irrespective of how much one had contributed against the other, that we would split everything down the middle, just like Lennon and McCartney did, basically. And that was an arrangement that worked. Sometimes he had just a very rough basis of an idea, and then we would put our heads together and co-write music and lyrics together. Or sometimes the song would be virtually finished, and then I would just make a small contribution in the studio. It did vary, I would say that in the earlier years we sort of had a more equal co-writing arrangement.
Now, apart from bearing your name, the project did have kind of an anonymity or mystique to it, in terms that you weren't a touring band, so there wasn't a high public profile. Do you regret that now, not capitalising on the success of the records, because you were selling lots of records?
I do and I don't. I think for us to have reproduced the sort of lush big sound that we had gone for on the records in the early years would have been very tough, unless we'd physically dragged at least a 50-piece orchestra on the road with us, and that of course would not have made economic sense. But in the 90s, keyboard technology was such that you could use really pretty convincing orchestral samples, and keyboards were much easier to program and recall sounds with. It really was, since we're really pretty primitive in the 70s and 80s, and you'd have been fighting to recall a sound that you'd got the day before, let alone just at the push of a button. Really, I regret that we didn't get the exposure that we might have got by playing live, but I don't think we would have sounded that great, and we might have been disappointing live as against the sound we got on records in the earlier years. But later on, in the 90s, we pulled it off pretty well. We have a great sound live right now.
Were you comfortable at the time with the band being categorised and lumped in with that progressive rock genre in the 70s? Did that sit okay with you?
Yeah, I was fine with that. I mean, to be likened to Yes and Genesis and Pink Floyd and so on, that was fine with me. It surprised me somewhat, because I thought we were a little perhaps more veering towards pop than some of the other names that I'd mentioned. But no, I was fine with it. And classic rock still continues to have an audience, and that's why I'm still here.
You've had a wonderful succession of musicians in the project through the years. Is there a criteria for you in terms of qualities a musician must possess for them to be right for you to work with?
Obviously I would go for, great musicianship, great technique. Creative musicians are always better than musicians who just do as they're told. But the most important thing is being able to get on with them and interact with them in such a way that you work for each other's benefit. There are definitely musicians who are wrong, and there are definitely musicians who are right. And I'm pleased to say that most of the people who've appeared on the projects have been the right people.
Is there one particular album for the Alan Parsons project that really stands out for you as the band coming of age and being closest to what you set it out to be?
Believe it or not, it's still the first one that I always say is the favourite. But I think Stereotomy was a pretty good album. It had less commercial success than some of the others. Pyramid would probably be a third choice. But somehow, I feel the most proud of Tales of Mystery, the first album.
Yeah. What about the current status of the Alan Parsons project? Can you tell us about some of the guys in the band now?
The Alan Parsons project is now defunct. It was a two-man team. It was Eric Wolfson and myself. Eric, as you may know, died sadly at the end of 2009.
Yeah.
but to make the distinction between the Alan Parsons project, which was essentially a studio-only outfit, we now go out as the Alan Parsons Live project.
Okay.
And currently, we're about to set up to go to Colombia next week. We're doing a show in Bogota. And we've got a 7-piece band. We recently added an extra guy, a singer and sax player. His name's Todd Cooper. And most of the other guys are based around the California area, which is where I live. I live in Santa Barbara. But they're all American. The initial identity of the Alan Parsons Live project was all British. And then I moved to the States 12 years ago, and it's been, for that, ever since then, it's been all American players, other than myself.
Before I let you go, a recent and significant project that you've been involved with is the DVD series The Art and Science of Sound Production. Tell us about that and the inspiration for you in putting it together.
It's actually The Art and Science of Sound Recording.
Oh, sound recording, sorry.
That's all right. That was a labor of love for a good 3 years. It's a 10-hour documentary educational series, all about every aspect of recording from initial conception to final mix. And it's different in that it's not just one figure, i.e. me. It's there's a lot of me in it, but there's a lot of interview footage with other engineers, producers, artists, and so on to break it out. And it's been tremendously well accepted, particularly by universities and sound recording colleges. But it's designed to be entertaining pretty much for anybody has the slightest interest in what goes on in a recording studio. Sorry about that phone ringing. I'm hoping somebody's going to pick that up.
That's okay.
But I think it has a very wide appeal. It's a 3 dB set, and it's got 10 hours of footage. Sorry if I've already mentioned that, but it took some putting together. It took some time to put it together. It's a bit like making 10 albums at once. So it was fun to do, and I learned a lot about television production and how to conduct myself in front of a camera during the making of the program and stuff. So it's something I'm very proud of.
I get the impression it was a real labour of love for you. Do you wish a resource like this would have been available to you when you were just starting out? Oh yeah,
it would have. In fact, there have been some sort of testimonial comments by modern day engineers who have said that very thing. They wish they'd had a series like this to study with when they started out. But it's an ideal thing for a beginner, somebody looking for a career in sound in some way.
Terrific. Alan, I know I've got to let you go, but just before I do, upcoming plans. What's in your books for the immediate future?
Really, just gigs. We've got gigs in Colombia, as I mentioned. We've got one in Mexico, I think, before the year is out. A few shows in Brazil, mostly South America so far. We'll probably hit Europe in the spring of next year. We'd love to come down under again, but it's an awful long way, and it's hard to make the money, the money in and the money out, not be too far apart.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
But we know we have fans in Australia, and if the opportunity arose and we could make it work, we'd love to do that. Otherwise, I am recording. I put out a single. It's probably almost a year now since I put it. It's called All Our Yesterdays. It's on the website alanparsonsmusic.com. I'm doing some more stuff. Probably once we've assembled 4 or 5 tracks, we might do an online release or go and look for a deal with a label. I haven't really made the decision on that yet, but I'm keeping busy. I am recording and I'm doing shows. So keeping it keeping the business alive, as it were.
Fantastic. Plenty to look forward to. Thanks so much for giving us your time today, Alan, and thank you for all the wonderful music you've been involved with over the years, and we're sure there's still plenty more to come.
Oh, I hope so. My pleasure. Thanks so much.
All the best. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.